are so expensive. They are said to be among the best violins in the world. Even if you're not a musician, chances are you've heard the name Stradivarius. Many violinists dream of getting a chance to play an instrument made by the greatest violin maker of all time. But why are they so expensive? Nowadays, a beginner's violin can cost anywhere between $300 and $1,000. Stradivarius violins sell for millions of dollars. Keep watching to discover why musicians and collectors are willing to pay such a high price for these instruments. But first, don't forget to click the subscribe button and turn on notifications to be one of the first Brightsiders to watch our videos. Stradivarius violins were created by Antonio Stradivari. He was born in 1644 and opened up his violin shop in his hometown of Cremona, Italy. But he didn't make a master violin on his first attempt. He began making violins while he was still a pupil of the Italian violin maker Niccolò Amati. At first, his violins were like his mentors, small, solidly constructed, and with a light yellow varnish. But he didn't stop there. He painstakingly experimented for years and for a while settled on constructing larger violins covered in a deeper colored varnish. In the 1700s, Stradivari decided to improve his style yet again and had what is referred to as his golden period, a time when he created the best work of his life. He started covering his violins in the characteristic orange-brown varnish and used excellent wood, including that of the maple tree. The violins produced during this period are so masterful that several have individual names and reputations. For example, the Betz violin, produced in 1704, is now in the United States Library of Congress, and the Allard violin, produced in 1715, is considered the best Stradivarius in existence. In case you didn't know, Stradivari also produced other stringed instruments, cellos, harps, guitars, and violas. But it was his method of making violins that others would try to replicate for centuries. Stradivari set the standard for how a violin should sound, how it should look, and how it should be played. In his Italian home, he continued to produce instruments until he died at the age of 93, having made an estimated 1,100 instruments. Of those 1,100, around 650 survive today, 550 of which are violins. Many are still in use over 250 years after his passing. These violins are found all over the world. In 2014, the Kreutzer Stradivari violin was found in a closet in the home of U.S. heiress Hoggett Clark, so it seems that there are still chances of more of his instruments being found. Stradivarius violins produce powerful and penetrating tones. They are said to have brightness, expressiveness, and brilliance, terms that describe sound quality. There's also a widely held belief that, unlike any other violins, Strads can project their sound to the room but seem relatively quiet to the musician playing. In general, they are believed to have better sound quality than new violins. Researchers have tried to learn the secret that makes Strads the best violins in the world, and the theories are many. Some say that Stradivarius violins are so superior because of the wood used, the size of the F-holes in the design, or the varnish. Some theories claim that the secret is in the uniform density of the two wooden panels that form the body of the violin. Others say that the secret is a chemical treatment that's designed to kill woodworm and fungi. A study conducted in 2015 by MIT showed that the secret to the violin's deep acoustic sound is in the design and the size of the F-holes on the front of the violin. With more elongated holes comes more sound. Stradivari made the holes longer and larger than any other violins before his time. Scientists have tried to figure out if all the hype and myth around Strads is valid. The violins have been run through CT scans and X-rays and have been the subjects of multiple studies. In 2017, a study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences tested how subjects reacted to the sound produced by new violins compared to Strads. They were specifically testing a characteristic you learned about earlier. Strads can project sound while seeming quiet to the player right next to the instrument. Unfortunately for the Stradivarius brand, the study couldn't find any evidence that Strads could perform like that. The consensus was that when the violins were projecting sound the best, they also sounded much louder to the performer. Several of the performers actually thought that the projection of sound was better in new violins. Another study was conducted in 2012 and led by French acoustics researcher Claudia Fritz, and she tested 17 professional violinists. They were blindfolded and asked to play 3 kinds of violins: Stradivarius violins, violins from another master Italian violin maker called Guarneri, and new violins. Out of the 17 subjects, 7 couldn't tell the difference. 7 chose incorrectly, and only 3 got it right. Even if science says there's not much of a difference between Strads and newer violins, many people still have strong preferences for the Strad and have performed emotional bonds with the instrument. The history, the antique element, the rareness, and the myth of Stradivarius instruments make them the most revered in the world. Despite what science has to say, many of the violins left are some of the most expensive in the world. They have been sold at private auctions to banks, charities, and people who must love music a whole lot to pay such a hefty price. Take a quick guess at how much the most expensive Stradivarius was sold for. Consider that a violin played at intermediate level costs about $1,500. The most expensive Stradivarius was sold for more than $15 million. But not all Stradivarius violins are so expensive. Some are valued at around $2 million. Some of these expensive violins are also loaned to musicians. Imagine the pressure of holding an instrument worth $2 million in your hands. Some of the best musicians in the world have had a chance to play a Stradivarius, including Anna Kiko Myers, Joshua Bell, and Yo-Yo Ma. With the instruments being so highly prized, there are a lot of instances of people who claim to be selling genuine Stradivarius instruments that turned out to be fakes. In the 19th century, thousands of violins were made with the Stradivarius label, even when they were not original Stradivarius instruments. The violin makers didn't want to fool people, though. It was actually common practice to attach a Stradivarius label to say that the inexpensive violin was modeled after Stradivarius violins. Thus, people would know that they weren't buying an original, but a violin of similar design. Unfortunately for us today, that means that a Stradivarius label isn't a reliable way of distinguishing genuine Stradivarius violins from fakes. It takes an experienced eye and years of experience with thousands of instruments to tell if a Stradivarius is genuine or not. It's important to make that distinction, since at any one time there are 15 to 20 Stradivarius instruments being sold through the main dealers in London, New York, Paris, and Rome. The Stradivarius market is small, but very competitive, and the violins are expected to double in price every decade. The Messiah violin, which Stradivari built during his golden period in 1716, is believed to be the most immaculate Strad left. It has never been played and has an estimated value of $20 million. The Messiah has not been sold and is currently on display at the Ashmolean Museum in England. But if it is bought through a dealer at that price, it would make it the most expensive violin of all time. Would you Brightsiders prefer to own an expensive Stradivarius instrument or an inexpensive newer violin if they were shown to have similar sound quality? Tell us in the comments section. Share this video with your musician friends, and don't forget to subscribe to stay on the bright side of life.